I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and I believe that Godzilla vs. Kong is a little bit deeper than most people claim. Now, I will agree that it's not the deepest entry in the MonsterVerse, despite how it physically goes as deep as it is possible to go. Its primary purpose is to provide a fun time at the movies, and on that front, it delivers. Moreover, there's nothing wrong with the choice to be more straightforward than its predecessors. Escapism for its own sake is no sin. Sometimes people just want to have fun without any extra baggage, and Godzilla vs. Kong came out at just the right time to provide that fun. However, that doesn't mean the film is completely devoid of meaning and poignancy, for less is not a synonym for none. So, for those of you who are interested, this particular video will kickstart our journey into peeling back the layers, as few as they might be with this particular film. To start things off, we shall begin by examining the journey of Kong. When you get right down to it, Godzilla vs. Kong is Kong's story, with him as the protagonist we follow from literally start to finish. But what exactly is his story about?
Isn't he being exploited by humanity again, like he always is?
To a certain degree, yes, but that's not all we have to look at. Consider where Kong begins in this film. At first, things seem quite nice for the Eighth Wonder. We see him relaxing on Skull Island, which is oddly peaceful. It's not long before we learn the reason why. Kong is actually being held in a tremendous dome constructed by Monarch to keep him alive, for the rest of the island has been engulfed by the storm which kept it isolated from the world. This is a very important detail that provides the impetus for Kong's journey in the film. Before we go any further, I would like to remind everyone that traditionally, King Kong is a tragic figure. In the original 1933 film, he is the lonely king on the high mountain, the proverbial man who has everything except the one thing he desires most: companionship. In seeking out his companion, the lovely Andero, he finds even more grief than he already had. Not only is he rejected by her, but his feelings are then exploited to make him a prisoner. He is then put on display for a gawking crowd who only sees him as a dumb brute from a savage land, and when he makes a bid for freedom, he is murdered by his captors for daring to defy their will. That is a pretty hardcore tragedy right there. In the MonsterVerse, Kong is the subject of a different kind of tragedy, one that's in place even before we first meet him. While it is true that Kong Skull Island allows the character to break from certain aspects of his tradition, other aspects remain. It is made abundantly clear, for example, that Kong is once again utterly alone, and he is as mortal as anyone else. The rest of his species is gone, and if they can die, so can he. Indeed, his death is never spoken of as a question of if, but a question of when and how.
Reminds me a bit of Superman, actually. He has ultimate power, and yet his entire race was doomed before he was even born.
Yet Kong's existence in the MonsterVerse is made bearable by way of giving him a purpose. Kong exists on Skull Island to keep the ecosystem in check, specifically by hunting the skull crawlers. Without him, these ravenous lizards would run roughshod over the island and eventually overrun the whole planet. Although Kong wages this war alone, he does so without question or remorse. Here, Kong does not find value in companionship, but rather in fulfilling his role. Nature is balanced on Skull Island because of him. But as mentioned, Skull Island has been destroyed by the time we get to the big death match. Exactly how it was destroyed is up for debate. The movie simply shows the storm surrounding the island getting bigger until the land is engulfed. The prequel comic Kingdom Kong states that the storm is a combination of Ghidorah's attempted terraforming of Earth and an attack by a bat-like titan named Camazotz. However, since the comic doesn't line up with what the movie presents in other areas, I'm hesitant to take these events as full canon. Whatever the case, Skull Island is gone now. Nothing can survive on it anymore, including the skull crawlers, so there's no longer a risk of them wrecking the island and spreading beyond it. Even if the Skullcrawlers were still a threat, though, Godzilla is now supreme ruler of the world as of 2019, and any creature who would upset the balance of nature must answer to him. Presumably, he could deal with the Skullcrawler outbreak if he needed to. Alright, so the issue on Skull Island has been taken care of permanently. That means Kong no longer serves a purpose. So why is he still there? Remember, the reason that Kong keeps going is because he has a purpose, and he finds meaning in that purpose. But Skull Island is effectively gone now, which means Kong's services are no longer needed. Technically speaking, Kong could have perished in the storm along with everything else on the island, and the world would be no worse off. That may sound callous to say, but it's true. And yet, Monarch is keeping him alive inside this ludicrously huge holodeck simulation. It was likely done out of empathy for him, but the result is that Kong is now a prisoner in his own devastated home. Kong is the king without a kingdom, a god without a church. He wants to get out and resume his work, sure, but leaving the dome means certain death, either by way of the storm or incurring Godzilla's wrath. Kong's story in this film opens with tragedy, not because he is destined to die, but because he wasn't allowed to die. Kong has outlived his usefulness. Due to Godzilla's sudden attack in Florida, Kong is given a new purpose, though it's one that he has thrust upon him, and it's not exactly good. The master plan by Walter Simmons, head of Apex Cybernetics, is to put mankind above the Titans, and his construction of Mechagodzilla to this end is what provokes Godzilla to attack. Since the dialogue tells us that humanity has been free of Titan attacks for at least 3 years, that means Simmons has essentially created his own problem by way of making the solution. But nobody knows that at first. All anyone knows is that Godzilla has suddenly attacked humanity seemingly unprovoked, and Simmons claims he has a way to stop him. He just needs something that can complete it, but finding it requires a journey to the center of the Earth. To this end, he manipulates Dr. David Lin to lead the expedition, who then enlists Eileen Andrews and Gia to use Kong as part of the plan. Kong is simply meant to guide them to a power source deep underground that would power Simmons' new wonder weapon. This is not a purpose Kong serves by choice, and it's likely he doesn't realize the deeper implications of it. Still, though, he moves forward in search of a new purpose. Perhaps by entering the Hollow Earth he can find others like him, and they can give him a new reason to live. Of course, they have a run-in with Godzilla en route to the Antarctic entrance, and Kong battles for his life because, purpose or no, he doesn't want to die. The encounter does give him a new foe to struggle against, but we'll go into the deeper implications of his rivalry with Godzilla later. The important detail is that Kong is beaten, and he's not going to let it stand, but a rematch will have to wait until he ventures into the Hollow Earth, prompted by the promise that he might belong there. At first, Kong seems right at home, and there appears to be hope that he will find meaning in this underground world. Yet the tragedy creeps in again when we reach the temple. With a look of hope on his face, Kong calls out into the cavernous chamber, but he receives no reply. This may be his ancestral home, but he's still alone, and no purpose has presented itself to him. So, Kong sets about the task of figuring out what to do now that he's there. He finds his axe, he claims his throne, and he learns how to charge his newfound weapon. Perhaps his new purpose is to rule this world below as he ruled his island above. At this point, hope starts to creep back in. Kong still hasn't found a purpose yet, but one gets the sense that he will with time. Unfortunately, the charging of the axe leads the Apex team to the power source they needed for Mechagodzilla. In addition, it gets Godzilla's attention, and knowing that something is happening that shouldn't be, he attacks. Godzilla's actions destroy the temple, and tragedy befalls Kong once again. But wouldn't you know it, right when things are looking up, his ancestral rival snatches everything away. Kong has no clue why Godzilla responded the way he did, nor does he care. This is personal now, and Kong isn't going to take it. Kong's direct challenge to Godzilla is the next step in his search for purpose. Kong has already refused to submit to Godzilla and acknowledge him as the one true alpha, but this direct challenge seems to be a ploy for total control. This is about more than getting revenge for the attempts on his life. Kong is making a direct play for Godzilla's title. He wants to be the alpha. For what greater purpose can there be than to usurp a god and claim his godhood? To Kong's credit, he puts up quite a fight, but the truth is that he flew too close to the sun. Godzilla is just too powerful, but even though Kong is clearly outmatched, he still refuses to submit even when the one true king has him dead to rights.
You know, a lot of people have criticized this moment. They say it makes no sense for Godzilla to spare Kong.
Yeah, I know, and that confuses me because I think the logic here is obvious. All Kong has left at this point is his pride, and he refuses to let that go. I think in a way Godzilla respects that, and thus chooses to let Kong maintain that pride to a degree. He knows Kong is finished and almost certainly going to die from his injuries, but the ape is still not giving up. So just this once, Godzilla decides to let his foe die with dignity. Weird how so many people seem to miss that. Anyway, Kong is toast. He has nothing left but his pride, and that won't keep his heart beating. Really, his pride is what landed him in this spot. Thanks to that pride, he's now dying without a kingdom, without a people, and worst of all for him, without a purpose. Even if he had the strength to carry on, he has no reason to anymore. And then Mechagodzilla shows up. Driven by the ruthless mind of King Ghidorah, the machine proves to be too much for Godzilla to handle on his own. Maybe Godzilla is a little drained from the fight, or maybe he really is outclassed this time. Whatever the case, Mechagodzilla has him on the ropes, and if the machine wins, he won't stop at killing Godzilla. The whole world is at risk now. Godzilla really needs help, and the only one who can help him is Kong. Thanks to Nathan jump-starting his heart, Kong is revived and caught up to speed by Gia. He has a new immediate purpose. Work with Godzilla to save the world from this new mechanical destroyer. Interestingly, Godzilla needs no convincing to accept Kong's help. He just knows the ape has switched sides and accepts it. Good on him. It is only by working in tandem that they are victorious. More specifically, Godzilla must give Kong some of his power, and Kong must accept it to score the final victory. Having dealt the final blow to Mechagodzilla, Kong is once again exhausted, but when confronted by Godzilla again, he prepares for another fight. Maybe Kong is anticipating another attack, or maybe he really does think he can still take Godzilla. Whatever the case, everyone now knows that it's foolhardy for him to even try. Godzilla knows it too, but rather than finish him off, he disarms Kong with a simple nod of his head. The ancient rivalry is over. Thanks to this, Kong now has a new purpose. He will be there to save Godzilla when Godzilla cannot save himself. But that does not make him the greater Titan. The two now stand before each other as equals. With this new order established, Godzilla resumes his role over the world above, while Kong is given domain of the world below. In the tradition of the Greek heroes, Kong's valor is rewarded when he goes to paradise in the underworld, though since he's not dead, yet, he will no doubt be able to return one day if he is needed. This is the true triumph of Kong in this film. It's not defeating Mechagodzilla or claiming domain over the Hollow Earth, but rather the finding of a new purpose, a new reason to keep living even after he's lost everything he once had. So what does the eighth wonder of the world do now? Well, that depends on what the sequel winds up being. Whatever the case, it will presumably follow Kong as he serves this new purpose, or maybe he'll find a different one. Whatever the case, as it stands now, this is the happiest possible ending that Kong could ask for, especially given the alternatives. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. So the next time you're struggling to figure out your purpose in life, remember that it could be worse, because you could be getting clobbered by a thermonuclear dinosaur while trying to figure it out. That's the real takeaway, I think. Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books, Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.